In the summer of 2016, a 17-year-old German boy, filled with a love for adventure, traveled alone to a sunny Mediterranean island country. However, just a few days later his life came to an abrupt end. His body was found near a cliff. His belongings were missing, and more horrifyingly, most of his organs were mysteriously absent. Even the bicycle he rode before his death became a mystery. So, was this an accident or a meticulously concealed murder? Why did the death of a sunny young boy leave so many unsolved mysteries? Mike Mansholt was born in Oldenburg, Germany. He was a cheerful, straightforward, and adventurous boy. From a young age, his father took him everywhere. Thus, he developed a love for sports. He enjoyed various sports, especially cycling, skateboarding, and rock climbing. Mike had made several long-distance cycling trips alone. He was also very interested in European historical sites. On social media, he shared photos of his travels in different countries. In 2015, he and his father canoed on the Yukon River in Canada and crossed the North Atlantic to Iceland. At such a young age, he did such crazy things. This made his family very proud. Mike had a strong, adventurous spirit, but he was not a reckless person. Every time he went out, he would say goodbye to his family, and he would check in with them every day. This made his family feel very reassured about him. Because of this, after graduating from high school, 17-year-old Mike planned to go to Malta alone for a vacation to explore the natural scenery of this Mediterranean island. On July 8, 2016, Mike left Germany for Malta. In the first few days of his vacation, he had a great time and kept in touch with his family. He shared his daily life with them. But on July 16, after telling his family that everything was going well, his phone could no longer be reached. There were no updates on social media. His family thought he had just gone to a place with poor signal and that he would contact them in a few days. By July 22, the day Mike was supposed to return home, his scheduled flight had already taken off. But his family did not receive any information about him boarding the plane. They had expected him to return to Germany that day, but after waiting all day, there was no news. Since Mike was always very organized and had informed his family of his travel plans before the trip, his family immediately sensed that something was wrong and reported it to the local police in Malta. In the initial investigation, the police found that Mike had rented a bicycle on July 17 and may have ridden to a place called Dingley Cliffs. This is one of Malta's most famous natural landscapes. Located on the west coast of the island, the highest point reaches 220 meters. It is the country's highest natural landform. The scenery here is magnificent, overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. It often attracts cycling, rock climbing, and photography enthusiasts. However, due to the steep terrain, this beautiful hill also has some very dangerous cliff areas. Historically, there have been cases of tourists accidentally falling here or being blown off the cliff by strong winds. Moreover, because the area is relatively remote, few people come during the day and even fewer at night. This provides cover for potential criminal activities. However, the police were unable to find Mike's activity trail from the evening of July 17 to the early morning of July 18. Surveillance footage also did not clearly record his final movements. A week later, on July 26, Mike's body was found by a hiker. The location was at the bottom of a cliff. However, strangely, his body was not directly below the cliff but in a recess inside the rocks below. Normally, if someone falls off a cliff, inertia would cause them to fall further, but Mike's position was inward. Even strong winds could not have blown him into this rock recess. Because of this, during the police investigation in the previous days, it was difficult to find Mike's body from the top of the cliff due to obstructions. What was even stranger was the abnormal state of Mike's body. When the body was found, there were no obvious fractures or serious external injuries. This is completely inconsistent with a fall from a 30-meter high cliff. In addition, his shoes were taken off and placed a few meters away from the body. The bicycle was also found in nearby bushes, but it was hardly damaged. Only one tire was flat and there were some minor scratches. However, Mike's wallet, phone, and GoPro camera were missing. These items likely contained important information about his activities before his death. In the initial autopsy, Maltese forensic reports indicated that the body was highly decomposed and severely dehydrated. The state was even close to that of a mummy. The absence of fractures in the bones indicated that he did not experience a high-altitude fall, and there was almost no water in his body. but only 8 days had passed from his disappearance to the discovery. This is completely inconsistent with Malta's humid climate. Normally, a body would dehydrate, but not to the point of complete dryness. Subsequently, Mike's body was transported back to Germany for further autopsy. More horrifyingly, German forensic experts were surprised to find that his heart, brain, lungs, stomach, liver, pancreas, right kidney, adrenal glands, and even his bladder and small intestine were all missing. Only the left kidney, diaphragm, spleen, and large intestine remained. Due to dehydration and decay, the entire body weighed only 16 kilograms when it reached the German forensic experts. In fact, before this, Maltese forensic experts had already summarized the autopsy report. The police had closed the case, claiming these organs were eaten by wild animals. The brain was liquefied due to high temperature. However, German forensic experts did not find obvious animal bite marks. Moreover, they believed it was unlikely for Mike's brain to completely liquefy within a few days. Regarding the cause of death, Maltese police firmly stated that Mike died in an accident. He most likely fell off a cliff while riding his bicycle. However, this conclusion is in clear contradiction with the autopsy results and on-site evidence. Mike had no external injuries or fractures, so how can this be explained? How can the disappearance of his internal organs and brain be explained? Additionally, apart from a flat tire, why was the bicycle otherwise almost intact? The second autopsy in Germany directly ruled out the possibility of death from a fall. So what exactly happened to Mike that day? I believe most viewers have their own ideas by now. The following speculations come from official sources or netizens' conjectures. First is the conjecture that Mike was murdered by organ traffickers. Various pieces of evidence suggest that Mike was likely killed by someone and his organs were harvested. But this theory has many contradictions. First, Malta, a small island nation, is not an active area for organ trade. To date, there have been no cases of organ trafficking. If there were international organ smuggling groups, they would typically choose countries with more abundant medical resources and weaker regulations, rather than this small island nation. Moreover, if Mike was indeed killed by organ traffickers, forensic experts would have noticed immediately. Mike's autopsy did not show surgical incisions or precise removal marks. The disappearance of organs seemed more like being eaten away or due to environmental factors. Moreover, professional organ trafficking groups usually use advanced surgical equipment and cold storage to ensure the quality of organs. They would not operate in broad daylight. Furthermore, almost 90% of Mike's internal organs were missing. Even his brain was gone. Organs like the pancreas, bladder, and small intestine are of little significance to organ trafficking groups. Removing them would take more time. They would not complicate this simple murder case. Additionally, organ traffickers are usually not interested in personal items, especially items like phones, cameras, wallets, and credit cards. They usually dispose of the body properly to cover up the crime, such as burying or hiding it, rather than leaving the body exposed near a cliff for people to find. So the theory of being murdered by organ traffickers can basically be ruled out. Another theory is that Mike was hit by a driver that day. The impact directly threw him off the cliff, causing his death. To make this accident less likely to be discovered, the driver moved Mike's body to a rock depression and took his personal items, then fled the scene. This could also explain why the bicycle had a flat tire. But this theory also doesn't hold water, because it doesn't explain the absence of fractures and external injuries and the disappearance of internal organs and brain. Another theory is that Mike committed suicide. This is also impossible, because Mike's family knew he was an optimistic and cheerful person. Even if he wanted to commit suicide, he wouldn't choose a tourist island nation, and he was normal just a few days before. Why would he suddenly commit suicide in the last few days? Throughout, what Maltese authorities gave to Mike's father and German police was a case closure report and a body. Regarding the cause of death, Maltese police only concluded accidental death. Mike's father once suspected that Maltese authorities were covering up some truths. He also repeatedly went to the crime scene to investigate, trying to find out the real cause of his son's death. But the clues provided by the authorities were too few. Photos of the first crime scene were also sealed. After some time of investigation, Mike's father came to his own conclusion. The following are all from this father's speculation. He believes that his son was indeed riding his bicycle to the mountaintop that day, but halfway through, the bicycle had a flat tire, so Mike had to go on foot. As he usually enjoyed rock climbing, he decided not to take the road but to climb instead. He left his bicycle and climbed up barehanded, but the hot climate quickly drained his energy. So he rested in a shaded rock depression. But as time passed, he gradually dehydrated, eventually suffering from heat stroke and fainting. With no phone signal and no one around, he could only die alone here. There was no one around where Mike died, but there were some local villages not far away. These villagers have been farming for years. Perhaps a few days after Mike's death, villagers passing by discovered Mike's body, but they did not choose to report it to the police. Instead, they took all of Mike's personal belongings. Although they were not worth much for the villagers, it was a considerable income. Time passed and Mike's body was found and immediately taken for an autopsy. The forensic expert found no fatal external injuries on Mike. To investigate the cause of death, the forensic expert had to perform an internal examination. But according to Maltese law, an autopsy cannot be performed without the family's consent. But Maltese authorities, in order to quickly find the truth, performed the autopsy prematurely, violating regulations. After that, the organs were not put back in, and fabricated a lie to the German authorities that Mike's organs and brain had been eaten away. Of course, this is just the father's one-sided account. Moreover, there is no solid evidence to support this. Mike's death remains shrouded in mystery to this day. In fact, it's clear to everyone. The official investigation is full of loopholes. The family's questions have not been answered for a long time, and all the clues point to the possibility of some kind of human intervention, whether it was an accident, murder, or a deeper conspiracy. This case has left too many unanswered questions for people. As Mike's family, they are still running around for the truth, hoping to find the real answer about his death. His father has been calling for international attention, hoping to prompt the authorities to reinvestigate. And for those who care about this case, Mike's death is not just an unsolved mystery. It is also an issue of judicial justice, transparency in international investigations, and the rights of victims. Perhaps one day, with more evidence emerging, the truth about Mike's death will come to light. But before that, the mysterious death of this young man on the cliffs of Malta will forever remain an unresolved case that is hard to let go of.